Today, we are diving deep into something I know that you, just like me, struggle with: overthinking. You know that feeling? You've got all these ideas, all these dreams, all these choices, but you're just stuck. It's almost like you can't do anything because you want to do everything, but everything is not possible. So you just sit back and you wait, and then you're considering this over that, and then you just do nothing. That's called overthinking. You're spinning your wheels, constantly reviewing options, afraid to make a mistake, unsure of which step to take, which one's going to be better, which one's going to lead to better results. I've been there, trust me, and overthinking is no place to foster progress and goal setting and motivation. It's literally a cycle of being stuck in a trap of your own brain and your own mindset, and not being able to see any fruit from all the toil you're experiencing on the inside, even though you're wanting your external circumstances to change. But today, I want to share how I've broken through that and how you can too. Plus, I'm going to give you some faith-based encouragement to help you tackle this, knowing that God's got your back every single step of the way. But before we get started, welcome to my channel. I'm Emily. I'm a certified Christian life and business coach, and I want to make sure we stay connected. You're going to want to stay tuned for all of the life coaching and entrepreneurial tips that I offer on this channel, and connect with other moms who are like-minded, faith-based, wanting to pursue God at all costs and leave a legacy behind. This is a one-of-a-kind community, and I want you to be a part of it. So make sure you're notified and subscribed to this channel and to this show. If you're looking to live boldly in your faith and your purpose, you've found your group. So let's get into it. Okay, let me take you back to a time when I was seriously paralyzed by overthinking and not making any choices. So I remember when God placed it on my heart over 10 years ago to start a blog. And it sounds simple enough because blogs were a thing back then, and it was like no big deal. A lot of people had blogs. But for me, someone who had only written in private, who was not considering any type of social media platform, place, any of that. Heck, I was focused on becoming a power suit CEO woman in the healthcare industry, and I had no bones about figuring out how to get online. But God was prompting me because I was struggling, and that I shared in a previous episode. You can go back and check that out. But basically, I just felt like, how could I even start that? I don't even know, like, where would I even begin a blog? How do you even start a blog? Where do you even write? And it spurred me on this path that I couldn't shake because God kept bringing it up. But I was getting lost in the weeds. I was like, okay, then I'll figure out how to write a website. I'll figure out how to, make graphics and all this stuff. And I did go down a pretty deep rabbit hole into that. I did teach myself how to create a website. I did learn how to create graphics and all this stuff, but I wasn't writing anything. And I was just scared. I was scared to put myself out there. I was scared to be vulnerable. In my research of doing all this, I discovered people making millions of dollars, having humongous platforms, humongous followings, and it just felt so out of reach and so out of touch. And I was like, why would I start this if I'm never going to get to that success level? I was telling myself that before I even got started. And I was giving myself all the reasons, negative reasons, why this was not a good path for me to take, why this didn't make sense for me, and convinced myself it would be a big fat waste of time. But God prevailed. Thank the Lord. And I had to get over this hump because there was no way what I was going through and what God was wanting me to do with that knowledge and that experience was going to fall on deaf ears or not be shared, because it was a hard lesson. It was a hard road to go down when I was struggling with who God made me to be and what I was put on the earth to do. And He wanted me to write about that. So I had to just get over that. And that's the first thing with overthinking. It tricks us into thinking that we're being responsible by analyzing every little detail. But in reality, we're just delaying. We're delaying obedience. And that's not good in God's world. So we're holding ourselves back from the very thing that God is calling us toward and wanting us to step into. And that is a reflection of our faith. And in that time, in that season, it was taking me so long to make decisions because I was lacking a depth in my relationship with the Lord. I was trying to control my outcome. I was praying for my will to be done. And that's why I was finding myself in the situation that I was in. That was a journey I was walking through that God was wanting me to share, because he knew through me sharing the circumstance I was in and the feelings that I had and the experience I was going through was not only going to help other people on a similar journey, but heal me, and realizing I need God. I need God's will for my life, not my own. And he knew that would be a way for me to get there. And it also launched me into a totally new world. And when I finally stopped overanalyzing everything and took action and just started, even when things weren't perfect, it all began to fall into place. It wasn't perfect. I definitely made mistakes along the way. I definitely did things silly and focused on the wrong stuff. But guess what? God used those mistakes to teach me. And in that process of starting this blog, I was able to connect with so many people, and people that I had known in my past who were coming out of the woodwork to message me privately, see me out, because I still am in the same area where I grew up, and would talk to me about reading my blog. But there was no evidence that they had read it, because there was no comment from them. There was no like. It felt like I was riding into the abyss, but it was impacting people I didn't know. It was like that ripple effect. We don't know what God is going to do with what we are obedient in. And I was obedient in writing and connecting with people on that level, and people were reading it, and people wanted to read more. I was just talking about what God was doing in my life, and that is God's testimony, not mine. So starting that blog was one small step, and it led me to starting my own business. It led me to getting certified in coaching. It led me into launching a podcast, being on podcast, launching ventures with people, and launching a digital business. So much, just so much, and so much more to come, because I'm working on very many things. So stay tuned. I'm just so excited for our community and what God is doing. So I think a lot of us struggle with what's called analysis paralysis. You guys have heard that. We feel like we need more information or more preparation before we can do anything. We tell ourselves that when we're fully prepared, we'll make the move, because then we'll know everything we need to know. And I'm notorious for this, because I don't want things to fail or break apart or not work. So I'm the person that considers every single outcome. So I don't have just one contingency plan. I have like 50. But the problem is I spend all my energy doing that, and then it never comes forth what initially I was trying to create. It's a Satan cycle that I have rebuked, and I am breaking free, and there's changes coming for my own personal life that I'm excited about, and I just cannot wait to see God's work, because I'm breaking that cycle. I'm getting out of my comfort zone, and you can too, and you should, because the Bible shows us we're never going to be fully prepared. In fact, the Bible shows us over and over again that God doesn't call the perfectly prepared. He calls the willing. He calls the obedient. Think about Moses. He didn't feel ready to do what God had called him to do. He did not feel ready to go lead his people out of another country based on premises that the governing body in Egypt did not want them to. Like, he was going to have to go up against the biggest superpower ever was. He had a stutter. He had lived in the desert for 40 years. This was not what he was prepared to do, but God was calling him, and his faith made him obedient, and he was willing to do what God called him to do. Gideon didn't feel ready. He wasn't ready to be a mighty warrior, but God told them to move anyway, and he's saying the same to you. Start moving. Get moving. In Zechariah 4:10, we're reminded of this such good truth. Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to begin. And I found that in those moments when I let go of needing to be perfectly prepared and ready, and just rely on God. If that's my main goal, I've got a concept, I've got some preparedness because I've done some digging on this, but I'm just going to rely on God to take this. That's when I'm truly me. That's when I'm truly stepping into what God is calling me to do. And I actually reap the harvest. I reap the fruit that God is wanting me to have from that experience, because my charisma, my wit, my discernment, the way God created me, those things God placed in me are able to fully be developed and fully come out and shine through when I'm not overthinking every single little detail. And I know that the same will be true for you. Another trap that keeps us stuck is perfectionism. I've been guilty of this so many times. I'm still struggling with it. I've been working on a project that I can't get perfect with the slides, literally, y'all. The slides that are going to move quickly through what I'm going to present. I can't finish this project because the slides are bugging me. And I'm guilty of wanting to get something finished and being stuck in this weird hyper obsessed, hyper-focused thing and focusing on the flaws or focusing on it not being the right aesthetic or something malign and stupid. So replaying this conversation in my head right now, just talking to you guys, is like, I'm talking to myself, get out of that. Stop that. Trying to make every move just right. It is going to literally drive you insane, because that's the thing. Perfectionism is a thief. Perfectionism robs you of joy. It robs you of creativity and progress. God never asks for perfection. In fact, he works in the imperfection, and that so many times. And isn't that even more of a testimony of his goodness and everything that he offers this world? It's insane. He can make good out of anything. He is making good out of anything. He calls us to just faithfulness, to be obedient to him, to have a relationship with him. Philippians 1:6 tells us, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That means it's not up to you to complete the work. It's up to God. And so if you find yourself struggling with perfectionism or indecision, my best advice, take action, do something, make a move. Trust that God is guiding your steps, and know that even if you make a mistake, he's going to use it to refine you, and still it's going to be used for his good. And that is something that holds so many people back. They talk so negative, and really Satan talks negative. Satan would love to keep you stuck, and he knows exactly which buttons to push in you and in your mindset to keep you from taking that action. And so your biggest rebellion, your biggest rebuke against Satan is to take that action in faith. Notice I say that, in faith, because in faith, God is with you. God is present. God is working. If we are pursuing God at all costs, his plan for us will not be thwarted. And his plan for those who are impacted by whatever it is we're doing will not be thwarted. And you're just called to be obedient. That's it. That's it. You are called to be in relation with God, called to be obedient. It does not matter the amount of success, the amount of money, the great relationship, the pretty clothes, the whatever it is, that the beautiful artwork that you might be making, whatever it might be. It matters your relationship with God first and foremost. And if we pursue him in that faithful obedience, it's a good work. It's a good work. And our ultimate satisfaction is the joy that we have given to us by God, and the contentment that we have and the peace that we have in knowing him alone and not being focused on the trivial part. And think about the experience you get to go on. If you're stepping out in faith, think about what that could be. I had no idea what that little blog, and you can still find it, boldpearls.com. I had no idea what that was going to shape into my life. And a decade later, it's unbelievable. The amount of skills I've learned, the amount of knowledge I've gained, theology I've gained, because everything I've done has driven me closer to God. And that's ultimately what he wanted from me. It had nothing to do with the amount of monthly visitors I had on my website or the amount of money my coaching business or digital business makes. That is literally nothing. That is a symptom of the main thing, which is being in alignment with the Lord. And I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect at it. So how do we battle this cycle of overthinking? First, here's a reality check. There's no perfect choice. Stop waiting for it. Life is a journey. We hear that all the time. It's not about the first or the last date. Life is lived in the dash. And that's the reality. Life is a journey of learning, and even the missteps are going to be valuable. And Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Just trust that God is leading. That's what you need to do. Trust that God is leading and take the next step. Second, fail forward. We hear this, oh my goodness, this is going around right now recently, just in politics, questioning people's actual abilities, failing forward. But when we're in communion with the Lord as Christians, all our failures are failing forward, because failure isn't the end, and it's a step toward growth. If we are posturing our heart to seek God first, that failure will be growth for you. One of the most freeing things I've learned is that failing is just part of it. And each time that I have failed, because I have failed many times in this entrepreneurial journey, in this life that I've been living, just normal life, I've gotten closer to the person that God is shaping me to be. I've gotten closer to him, and my reliance and my values have become more emboldened. And that's made me a stronger person, a person that endures. And isn't that what it says in scripture? That faith causes endurance. And that's when you meet the people that have been through absolute tragedy, trauma, all of it. and they still have a light on inside of them. Their eyes still sparkle. That is grace given by God. And so even if we fail, we are given the ability to fail forward. It's not the end of our story. It is not. It is another beginning. It's another iteration. It's another chance to become more like Christ and to allow Christ to dwell within us and help to shape us. And that is a gift. And that supersedes any material success that you can gain. And that's encouraging. Like, I'm encouraged by that. Every time I try something new, I still battle my flesh of like perfectionism, overanalyzing, analysis paralysis. I still face those. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I've conquered it all. I definitely haven't. I'm a work in progress. But I have definitely improved, and I'm a different person than I was. And I would say I'm a better person. I would say that I'm more Christ-like than I was before. I still have a ways to go. And my joy is found in absolute 360 of things that like I would have found to be so important to me over 10 years ago. And that comes with life and being aware and present enough to see what's going on and experience life and be challenged by it and encouraged by it and hopeful over it. We all get the chance to live our lives and to live them well or bad. And it's all about choices. And that's why we're talking about this overthinking, because overthinking in my coaching, I have seen being such a catalyst for people having spent years in a situation that they simply just needed to make one small choice to get out of years ago. And they have spent so much time lamenting that. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So we're not going to know all the answers. We're not going to know the full picture, the full journey. But we can know that taking a small step is in the right direction, especially when we're seeking God and we know that His plans are best for us. And that's all I can encourage you to do. So the other thing that you have to do is don't overthink too much and act. And I know this kind of goes hand like failing forward, but sometimes it's just make the decision and go. Let's quit thinking about it. And that's why I wanted to mention Zechariah 4:10, because when God says, do not despise these small beginnings, He means that. He loves to see the work begin, because that is that faith. That is the faith that He is seeking from you, to have faith in Him. And that also means that nothing is too small. Like, it's all a start point. Everyone starts from zero. Everyone starts from nothing, right? Every success story you've ever seen, they started with just making one small choice. If you could just go all the way to the beginning, they made a choice. I'm quitting that job. I'm starting this. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to read more about that. I'm going to call that person and ask them XYZ. I'm going to reach out to that person who said yada yada. It's like little actions. That teacher spoke that one thing to me and it changed my whole paradigm. Those things happen. And it's one little thing. If your mind is turned on and you absorb it and you're present and you see it and you pray over it, that is an action, and God is about it. So take action. God rejoices when you begin. He's not waiting for perfection, and He's simply waiting for your faithfulness. So lastly, master your thoughts. How do we do this? This one's huge. We have to take every thought captive, as it says in 2 Corinthians 10, verse 5. When we start noticing those repetitive thoughts, those negative thoughts especially, we need to disrupt them. We need to get in prayer immediately. When I am obsessing, and I struggled with OCD as a child, and it followed me into my adulthood, and I have different, I would call them flare-ups, and I don't mind talking about those if y'all have questions, but I think I've shared some of it in previous episodes. But OCD is a mind game, and it can be a spectrum of degree, and I've had it to where it's really infiltrated my daily life, like weird little tics that I have to do and perform ritualistically to get through my day, and it can be debilitating. Luckily, I was able to mask them enough to where I could get through my day. Like, they didn't keep me from living my life, so to speak, but they were definitely interrupting my life, my daily life. And so that was something I had to conquer. And taking captive of your thoughts sounds so ethereal and stupid and secular, but God speaks about this constantly. He's always constantly telling us to be mindful, to watch what we say with our tongue. He created the earth by speaking it into existence. So our thoughts and our speech matter to the overall health of our mindset and matter to our overall life, because what we think creates how we feel, and what we feel incites our actions. And so our actions are what builds our life. So if we're talking about stopping overthinking, if we're talking about taking action, what would be the first step? It would be your thoughts. What are you thinking about? And where is the truth and the falsehood? And how can you separate those? And one of the biggest ways that I have conquered this, and I actually have an entire episode on the podcast dedicated to this. This was before I was doing YouTube videos. So if you're watching this on YouTube, all of the podcast episodes are uploaded to YouTube, the audio versions. But I talk about this, how to create better thoughts. And it's nothing, it's literally just being present of mind enough to think about what you're thinking about, write it down, pray over that, see where your thoughts are causing you feelings, see how those feelings have created actions in you. And so now we're going to reverse engineer this, because we want this action instead. We want these feelings instead. Let's have these thoughts instead. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to literally know the truth of what Scripture says about you, about the circumstance. What does God say? And start ruminating on that, meditating on God's Scripture, meditating on His Word, meditating on the truth that God says. That's going to change your negative thoughts. That's going to disrupt that behavior. And in the midst, when I'm having like an anxious thought, especially as a mother with kids, if I'm in a, like you wake up, you might just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you're in the state of just aggravation. And let me tell you, your kids are going to push you to the edge of your life when it comes to your mental health. And that's okay, because we're growing too as parents. We are growing at the pace, maybe more, because we need to be ahead of our kids so we can train them up well. We've got to grow at ample speed ahead of them. So it's a lot, okay? And I've seen this enough in my own walk just as a mother, even before doing all this other stuff, just how important my thoughts are, how much it impacts how I feel and how I treat my children, and how they are able to learn and heal and be healthy themselves from my thoughts, right? My thoughts are impacting a lot of people, and yours are too, because whether you have kids or not, you're in this world, and we were called to be in a community, and we were called to be a part of this world so that we can shine the light of Christ. So how are your thoughts exhibiting Christ-like characteristics? And that's something that I love about the WWJD moniker from when I was a child. That was huge. And literally still to this day, WWJD comes up in my mind life a lot. Like, I think, what would Jesus do right now? What would Jesus say right now? That's how I disrupt my negative thinking. And I pray immediately. I'm like, God, help me manage this right now. Help me think differently of this. What would you say to me right now? What do I need to know, God? He reveals himself to you when you call on his name. He loves you, and he is there, and he is always with you. That is the most precious gift of all from God. He is with us. And so breaking that negative thought cycle, in the episode that I talked about or mentioned earlier, I go through this little acronym that you can keep on your heart to help you manage that. And it's just a great tool to have to manage this very important aspect of your life. So pray, journal, seek speaking truth over yourself, and replace those lies with the promises that God has for you, because he does, and he knows you and he loves you. So if you're someone who's really feeling stuck in overthinking, maybe you're even questioning your purpose, having questions about your next step, what to do, you're in this stage of choice making and feeling like you're meant for more, but not really sure what that means, don't worry, you're not alone, because I've been there. That's what my whole coaching business is based on. And I've created lots of different resources. If you're ready to take action and build a purpose-driven life that aligns with your faith, then I've got something for you, my Unstuck workbook. It's a free resource that is going to walk you through overcoming those feelings and being trapped in indecision and guilt, and helping guide you toward actionable steps that you can take. So if you just want to comment Unstuck below, I will send that your way so you can start taking action. And if you're ready to dive deeper into turning those dreams into a reality, if you've been thinking about starting your own business, I have a course that's designed specifically for women just like you who want to build a business that not only brings in passive income, but also aligns with your faith, because it helps fund your ultimate passions and callings and all of that stuff. And everything from mindset and strategy to copy and pasting business instructions to set up your system, your business system, and there's 24/7 ongoing support. So you can find all the details to that in the links below as well, or going to boldbizlife.com. If you go to boldbizlife.com, you will get introduced to a free resource I have there to help you start thinking about that. And don't let overthinking hold you back. Like, you've got what it takes, and God's with you every single step of the way. And who needs a bigger cheerleader than that? Let's step into this together. Let's quit feeling like we can't do what God has called us to do, or that we're incapable, because you are capable through Him. He will qualify you. And I hope this is an encouragement to you, gives you some truth to hold on to and motivate you to do what you need to do today, right now, to take one small step, because God is in that and He wants to see your faithfulness begin that good work in Him. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I don't want to lose you on here, and I can't wait to connect with you and find out more about you. Let's go live boldly with purpose and excitement. And until next time, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Bye for now.